It was a Christmas Eve unlike any other, with the scent of fresh pine mingling with the sweet perfume of rabanadas freshly baked in Grandma's oven. The twinkling lights blinked in an almost hypnotic rhythm, reflecting their tiny points of light on the colorful balls, but it was an unexpected detail that created the true atmosphere of mystery. Among the traditional decorations, golden stars, candy canes, and shiny bells, there hung an unusual object, discreetly nestled among the branches. A small glass pickle, green and transparent, gleamed discreetly beside a little angel and, for some inexplicable reason, drew attention as if it guarded an ancient secret. They say the tradition originated in Europe centuries ago, in snow-covered villages, but no one was sure how this simple vegetable became part of a celebration so full of magic. And there I was, still a child, staring at that pickle and wondering if Grandma had gone crazy or discovered some Christmas spell. I had always heard stories of grandmothers who forgot to hang the ornament and supposedly lost their luck for the new year. But that night, more than superstition, the pickle represented a promise of adventure, an invitation to discover what truly mattered behind the year-end rituals. The flickering light created mysterious shadows on the wall, and I felt a chill down my spine as I imagined each fantasized version of that old custom. While the gathered family delighted in panettone and rabanadas, I silently planned the hunt that would come right after dinner, the famous search for the Christmas pickle. It was as if the entire world fell silent for an instant, leaving space only for the rustling of the pine's dry leaves and the muffled giggles of cousins. The first person to find the pickle would win an extra gift, a guarantee of good vibes, and a place of honor in everyone's heart. But there was also a hidden lesson, about to be revealed in the tangle of twinkling lights and ribbons that adorned every branch. I didn't know it yet, but that pickle would be the starting point to question traditions, create memories, and discover that the magic of Christmas lives in the simplest details. With shining eyes and a pounding heart, I approached the tree, unaware that each step brought me closer to a discovery greater than any gift wrapped in colorful paper. Each blink of the tree seemed to whisper something in my ear: pay attention, there's something beyond the game. The cold air entering the room through the slightly open window made my hair stand on end, mixing cold and excitement into a unique sensation of a child in love with surprises. Meanwhile, from the other side of the door, Grandma's muffled laughter could be heard, perhaps watching my attentive steps with affection and a touch of mischief. The stockings hanging by the fireplace swayed gently, announcing that soon the stories would come to life, tales involving the mid-19th century, Christmas markets, and the cries of street vendors. But I didn't need to hear it all to feel that something big was about to happen. That silent hunt promised to reveal a secret kept for generations, a small key capable of unlocking doors to forgotten memories and sleeping smiles. At the same time, a restlessness bubbled inside me, charged with curiosity and a slight touch of fear of the unknown. Perhaps that was the true Christmas spirit, mixing tradition and surprise, custom and invention, past and future in a single blink of light. I took a decisive step toward the tree, the muffled sound of my slippers marking the rhythm of a heart about to discover something transformative. Each ornament now seemed to carry a story, but it was there, in the apparently silliest detail, that the true enigma of the night resided. The Christmas pickle was not just a passing accessory, it was an invisible thread connecting generations, memories, and laughter around a sweet and unpredictable ritual. And the moment my hand touched the branch where the pickle was hidden, I knew that this strange tradition would become something much bigger than a simple family game. I was about to embark on a journey that blended folklore and emotion, laughter and reflection, creating a bond that would span years and continents. The night promised to be long, filled with revelations, stumbles, and, of course, that extra dose of enchantment that only Christmas can offer. So, with an open heart and a free imagination, I took a deep breath and dove headfirst into the most curious hunt I could ever imagine. Dear viewer, please check if you are still subscribed to the channel. Sometimes your subscription can be cancelled automatically, so it's always good to take a quick look. Also, consider becoming a channel member. As a member, you'll enjoy incredible benefits, such as watching our content without ads. Additionally, you can support our work by becoming a channel sponsor with a value. Your help allows us to invest in better tools and further elevate the quality of our content production. Join us on this journey and become part of our community. And leave a comment telling us the city you're listening from and what time it is in your location. We'd love to know. When I first thought about the origin of the Christmas pickle, a somewhat fantastical story my grandmother told me came to mind about German peasants, candlelit dinners, and a street vendor offering a green, crunchy specimen in exchange for blessings and good luck. But does this version actually exist in old European folklore books? Well, my dive into historical sources began there, amid cousins' giggles and the hesitant voices of the family's elders, who always concluded, "They say the tradition started in some remote village, you know?" We never really know for sure. What I discovered afterward intrigued me even more. There wasn't a single pickle people of Christmas but several small, scattered legends, like snowflakes that become something greater as they fall. In Germany, for example, I found references to a custom called Weihnachtsgurke, the pickle hidden among the branches of the Tannenbaum. Some families claim that the first person to find the pickle would win an extra gift, while others guarantee the legend was a ploy to keep children awake late, helping Dad assemble the tree without interruptions. Curious, isn't it? But when I rummaged through old 19th century Munich newspapers, I noticed the word Gurke almost always appeared in recipe columns and, believe it or not, in pickle advertisements. Nowhere was it clearly mentioned to hang glass pickles as Christmas decorations. The whole thing seemed more like a marketing slogan than a genuine ritual. Following the trail, I stumbled upon a writing by a Lutheran pastor from 1879, describing Christmas celebrations in his parish. He mentioned a curious custom. Children were tasked with finding a so-called golden pickle, a small glass ball painted green and gold, which, he said, symbolized abundance and hope for the coming year. No real vegetable was involved, it was all decoration. And even more interestingly, this pickle only appeared in certain regions of Germany and Poland, always related to families who adopted local farmers as godparents of Christ, a way to reinforce community ties during the harsh winter. But it doesn't stop there. Some descendants of German-American immigrants claim the tradition only gained strength in the United States when department stores in the early 20th century filled their windows with exotic ornaments. Imagine, Manhattan, 1920, illuminated windows, ringing bells, and advertisements offering the most authentic Weihnachtsgurke to decorate your tree. We know marketing has always amplified stories, so could it have been there, at the intersection of folklore and consumerism, that the Christmas pickle crystallized into what we know today? It's possible. There's even a letter from 1927, signed by a lady from Baltimore, complaining that she had received a glass pickle instead of a traditional toy in a package from a local store. She wrote to the company saying, "This seems made up, a tasteless joke." The official response, preserved in the brand's archives, stated that the tradition came from ancient snow-covered European villages, and that the customer should value the symbol of good fortune. Can you imagine the embarrassment? That lady, in lace gloves and a wool shawl, reading aloud to her book club friends that she had received a glass pickle instead of a ball of yarn. It's the kind of detail that reinforces the idea that the Christmas pickle, even if stemming from inconsistent folklore, ended up being legitimized by the merchants themselves. However, when I questioned historians specializing in Christmas and popular traditions, I heard something that made perfect sense. The Christmas pickle is a classic example of folklore in the making. They are half-truths, told, retold, and adapted according to the cultural needs of each group. In other words, there is no single point of origin. It's as if we had a mosaic of stories, some with German roots, others with Polish legend touches, and even American adaptations that mix the custom with electric lights and the consumerism of the modern era. This discovery moved me. I thought about how our family, with its half-Brazilian, half-American DNA, embraced the pickle legend and made it uniquely ours, a delightful game that hovered around the dinner table with a hint of treasure hunt and a hint of a lesson about gratitude. But before arriving at this cultural fusion, I passed through virtual libraries, blogs of Christmas stories, and even a folk museum in the Bavarian countryside, where I saw wardrobes full of glass accessories, including pickles with hand-painted snowflake designs. It was there that I realized, at the tip of the artisanal glass resides the human desire to materialize abstract wishes: luck, abundance, unity. The pickle, a humble preserved vegetable, became an icon of a ritual of hope. While researching, I caught myself laughing as I remembered the astonished faces of my cousins upon learning that, historically, no German grandmother gave pickles as Christmas gifts to attract good luck. It was all more related to local craftsmanship than robust superstitions. And yet, we believed fervently. That is the power of narrative. It shapes beliefs, creates identity, and gives substance to what, on the surface, seems like just a glass bauble hanging on a branch. We consume stories, help expand them, and, without even noticing, imprint them with our own cultural colors. Returning to that Christmas Eve at home, I realized that the half-truths about the European pickle functioned as a rite of passage between generations. Grandma Monsenher recounted with all possible conviction stories of German peasants, while my father remembered the letter from the lady in Baltimore, and my mother interjected with memories of craft fairs in Curitiba, where we discovered identical ornaments, but with no folkloric connection whatsoever. Each one brought their version, their piece of truth, and all fit together into a larger puzzle, the eternal search for something curious to involve the family, for a detail that breaks routine and makes Christmas seem pure magic. And it's not just that. Over time, the online community itself, especially groups of Americans passionate about folklore, began posting their proofs of origin, photos of old documents, and testimonies from distant relatives. One guy even scanned pages from an 1885 German almanac that spoke of a pickle dish served at dinner, but said nothing about hanging the pickle. In another forum, a historian claimed that the Christmas pickle tradition only truly grew during World War II, when families with soldiers in Europe needed to feel connected to the old continent. All of this is fragments, scraps that reinforce the idea that there is no solid script. There is, instead, the will to believe in a legend that makes Christmas more playful. And so we go, from story to story, stitching together the mantle of half-truths that envelopes the Christmas pickle. Whatever the initial spark may have been, a store advertisement in New York, an artisan from Dresden, or a simple preserved pickle that became a reason to celebrate, the fact is that today, hanging this ornament means more than superstition. It is an invitation to welcome the unexpected amidst tradition. It is allowing uncertain rituals to come to life and reveal what truly matters: the desire for connection, to create memories, and to celebrate, in a fun way, a family bond that strengthens with each retelling of stories from the past. As I gathered these fragments, I imagined my grandmother retelling the versions with that mischievous smile of someone who knows that, deep down, what matters is not historical accuracy, but enthusiasm. It is the half-truths and the interjections, the laughs, the provocations like, "That's just silly foreign stuff," that give personality to our tradition. Without this cultural broth, the Christmas pickle would be just another glass ornament, lost among balls and bows. Instead, it became an object charged with meaning, capable of sparking curiosity, prompting research, and, above all, generating conversations that span generations. And it is with this feeling of having unraveled only part of the enigma that I prepare to tell you how, on that very night when I delved into European legends, I experienced something completely new. The first time we hung the pickle on our tree, with an ornament of glass blown by the skilled hands of Grandma Monsenher. Believe it or not, the story was as surprising as the half-truths about the folklore itself. But that, my friend, is for the next part. Wait until you find out what happened when that green bauble met the highest branch of our pine tree. When I entered the living room and saw the yellowish box on top of the dresser, my heart gave that leap we only feel on special occasions. Grandma Monsenher, with that mischievous look of someone who keeps secrets, adjusted her wool shawl on her shoulders and signaled for us to gather around her. The box, covered in tissue paper sprinkled with golden stars, had the shape of an old case, the kind that once held baptism medals. I remember the curiosity bubbling in my chest as she slowly unfolded each layer of paper, revealing a tiny, delicate ornament, a blown glass pickle, translucent green with white spots and golden details. It looked like a fragment of mist preserved in crystal, so fragile that if I breathed too hard, I feared it would shatter. Grandma said she bought that pickle years ago on a lightning trip to Gramadou, while visiting the Christmas fair in the Saragossa. "My dear," she said, "that artisan eyed each miniature one by one, molded every curve with a blowing tube, and painted the glass veins while it was still hot. It's a work of patience and love." I almost felt the heat of the fire inside the glass furnace and imagined the artisan's calloused hands, carefully shaping that piece of art. Each greenish spot, each golden dot, reflected the light of a candle lit in the workshop, and I could swear that, for a second, I saw the flames dancing inside the pickle. It was then that I understood that this object was not just a silly ornament, it was the materialization of a generous gesture from someone willing to celebrate Christmas in a unique way. At that moment of wonder, my youngest sister, full of anxiety, could barely stand still. "Can I help?" she whispered, already reaching out her hand, but Grandma gently held her tiny fingers. "Slowly, my love. Every bit of care counts." And then came the most beautiful ritual. Dad brought the wooden ladder that creaked with each step, Mom lit the old lights, those crystal ones with porcelain sockets, and my older brother threaded a silver ribbon through the pickle's metal stem. I could smell the sweet scent of the warm lights, mixed with the aroma of fresh pine that filled the house. Each click of the lights was an invitation to silence, each flicker of the twinkling lights, a reminder that something sacred was about to happen. I climbed the ladder with the confidence of someone carrying a special mission. The room became so silent that I could even hear the fireplace clock marking the seconds. Reaching the highest branch, where we always keep our most cherished ornaments, was a challenge of balance. I felt the cold of the steel tube of the ladder against the sole of my slipper and the slight sway of the tree when I leaned on a sturdier branch. It was when I placed the pickle in its spot and, for a brief moment, everything shone with an almost mystical intensity. The green surface reflected every bulb, every paper star, as if it held memories of Christmases from centuries past. The old radio soundboard crackled, released a soft note from the Silent Night choir, and I swallowed hard, moved. Grandma then recited a small improvised blessing, speaking of prosperity, health, and love, almost as if raising a silent toast to the object she valued so much. "May this pickle remind us," she said, "that Christmas is about seeing the extraordinary in the simplest things." The words resonated in the room, enveloping everyone in an aura of tenderness. My mother wiped away an almost invisible tear, my father adjusted his handkerchief in his pocket as if wanting to keep that moment forever, and even the dog, somewhat confused, lay down at our feet, as if part of the ritual. And there, under the soft glow of the tree, I realized something curious. The glass pickle, as fragile as it was, became the convergence point of diverse emotions: the longing for those no longer with us, the expectation of the youngest, the nostalgia of the adults, and the cozy certainty that we belonged to each other. It was incredible how a little piece of glass could unite entire generations in the same pulse of affection. I, who had always been somewhat skeptical of these superstition nonsense, found myself agreeing with what Grandma said without contesting. Yes, Grandma, may it remind us of that. There was barely time to climb down the ladder. The cousins began whispering about who would find the pickle first in the hunt after dinner, and my brother was already rehearsing hide-and-seek strategies. But, in the blink of an eye, the mood changed. A strong gust of wind hit the slightly open door, the curtains fluttered, and the tree lights swayed, creating strange shadows on the walls. It was as if the house suddenly breathed deeper, reminding us that even in the warmth of affection, there is a mysterious force that inhabits ancient rituals. I felt a pleasant shiver, a mix of fear and astonishment, and wanted to run to Grandma, seeking safety in that protective embrace. She, however, smiled and made a gesture of someone who knows the value of the unexpected. Stay calm, my dear. This is the spirit of Christmas, to remind us that anything can surprise us. I stored every syllable she said, felt the smell of her wool shawl, and for a second, I imagined that the sweet crackle of the lights was, in fact, the laughter of ancestors celebrating with us. It was at that moment that I realized that the true magic of the pickle was not just in the game of searching for the extra gift, but in that feeling of belonging that envelopes every story told around the tree. Meanwhile, Dad resumed the Christmas soundtrack, chose a vinyl record with traditional carols, and carefully positioned the needle. The soft hiss gave way to the angelic voices of the choir, and all of us, without speaking a word, began to gently sway our hands, as if waving to invisible strangers. It was a moment of communion so simple and yet so powerful that I can swear even the smell of panettone seemed to intensify. And there, between the jingling of ornaments and the singing high above, I fully understood. Christmas is made in the detail, in the delicacy of a gesture, and in the memory it generates. When we finally stepped away from the tree, already feeling the buzz of anxious voices announcing dinner, I realized that glass pickle, more than an ornament, had become a mirror of our family history. It reflected the hands that created it, the voices that celebrated it, and the hearts that entrusted it with small wishes of love and prosperity. And, in a way, it invited me to continue sowing memories, to make space for new stories, and to cherish that ritual which, though improbable, was already an integral part of who I was. Little did we know, however, that first act of affection under the green-gold glow of the pickle was merely the prologue to a night full of laughter, stumbles, and running around. For as soon as dinner ended and the chairs were pushed aside, the famous pickle hunt began, and with it, a veritable Christmas pandemonium that bordered on chaos. But that's a story for the next part. Wait until you find out how Speedy Boy, competitive Grandpa, and the impatient great-aunt turned something so simple into a crazy race under the twinkling lights. Right after we pushed the chairs aside and cleaned up the last crumbs of panettone, the real party began, the hunt for the Christmas pickle. It was like unleashing a group of hungry children into a maze of branches and twinkling lights, each flicker of the lights provoking shouts of, "I found it, wait a minute, no touching." My brother, nicknamed Speedy Boy, seemed like a rocket, running from one corner of the room to the other while my cousins tried to block him, setting up improvised barricades with sofa cushions. The curtain fluttered with the wind coming through the slightly open window, spreading the scent of eucalyptus and firewood rising from the fireplace, creating a perfect setting for a Christmas pandemonium. Grandpa, with his plaid vest and competitive gaze, was not far behind. He knelt down, carefully felt each branch, muttering, "You won't escape me, you rascal," while the children lightly slapped each other in the hallway. Great Aunt Myrtez, always known for her impatience, crossed her arms and loudly grumbled, "What's all this mess? Did you see if the dog ate the pickle?" It was just a second of distraction, but it was enough for the dog, Fifi, to take advantage and sniff the tree trunk, wagging her tail as if participating in the game. We all laughed, even Great Aunt Myrtez let out a sigh that sounded almost like a smile, though she shook her head. "You guys are funny nuts, you know?" Meanwhile, I tried to stick to the strategy one had imagined during dinner, slowly approaching, pretending to be unconcerned, and surprising everyone at the exact moment I found the ornament hidden on the lowest branch. I planned each step, but I got lost in that symphony of laughter, stumbles, and exclamations. I fixed my gaze on the glimmers of the red and green balls, on the reflective ribbons, and suddenly, a cushioned smack hit my head. It was the signal that someone else had the same idea of getting close. I raised my arm, stretched my body, almost reached the pickle, but then Speedy Boy, with a spin worthy of a parkour maneuver, took the lead and, in fractions of a second, raised the object in the air, brandishing it like a trophy won in battle. The sound of an "I won" echoed through the room, and in a collective impulse, everyone stopped. It was then that I realized the beauty of the mess. It wasn't just a competition for an extra little gift, but a confusing ritual that brought generations together in the same explosion of joy. Grandpa clapped and let out a hearty laugh, my mother raised her hands in a sign of collective victory, and my father, previously serious, ended up guffawing. Now that's the Christmas spirit. Great Aunt Myrtez, all awkward, almost let her shawl fall, but held the fabric with one hand while laughing at herself. Even Fifi, who couldn't understand any of it, wagged her tail one last time before settling on the fluffy rug. But of course, the traditional complaint from the runner-up couldn't be missing. My cousin Raphael, always full of theories and codes of honor, shouted that he had been betrayed by a ninja move from Speedy Boy. He raised a dramatic protest, accusing his rival of illegal tree climbing, unethical hand positioning, and even secret conversations with Grandma before the final count. The argument escalated, but was promptly ended by my mother, who raised the glass pickle and, with a siren's voice, decreed, "Whoever was fast gets the prize, no impossible rule details." Everyone agreed, tired and happy, while the tree lights cast reflections on the green object, almost hypnotizing our exhausted gazes. In the midst of all that running around, an unexpected event occurred. Someone bumped into a wooden table, and a delicate wine glass fell, spilling a fruity stream towards the carpet. In a magic trick, the sweet, fruity smell mixed with the pine aroma, creating an ethereal cloud that made everyone stop laughing for a second. Great Aunt Myrtez, with a glint of mischief in her eyes, declared, "Look at that, even Christmas cries wine with emotion." The phrase hung in the air, engraved, and served as a pretext for more laughter, hugs, and jokes about our particular Christmas jungle. While we gathered the scattered pieces of laughter from the floor, the extra gift was revealed, a pile of handmade cards made by Grandma, each containing a secret wish for the next year. It was such a simple and beautiful surprise that, for moments, the chaos gave way to a silence charged with affection. Each person took their card, read it quietly, smiled, and kept it in their pocket as if it were a secret treasure. The whole race, the shouts, and the wine splashes now seemed part of a ritual of preparation for an intimate moment of reflection. But like any party, our hustle had many acts. Soon after, Dad took an old music box from the cabinet. It was a box that only worked if you turned a small crank. The song that came out was the same one we played when we were little, a slow version of Jingle Bells that crackled in crooked notes. While the whine of that melody echoed, some of us began to direct words of gratitude to each other, thanking them for being there, for carrying history in their speech, for enduring our usual mishaps. It was almost a miracle of tenderness emerging amidst the disorder, a reminder that the festive chaos was, at the same time, an expression of the love that united us. Then, suddenly, the energy changed. A mischievous wind shook the curtains again, and the lights blinked brighter, as if they wanted to tell us something. Grandma Monsenher, her face illuminated by a caress of nostalgia, whispered, "Did you know that it was at this moment that my grandfather invented a mysterious rule?" Everyone looked at each other, curious, and my heart raced ahead. Here came another story with that tone of family legend, those small details that only emerge after the main noise. I approached her, ready to listen, and felt the soft smell of the wool shawl she always wore at these times of confidence. But before she could continue, a muffled bang sounded in the kitchen. Someone had dropped a plate of rabanadas, and the noise woke up Uncle Raoul, who was almost asleep leaning against the wall. He got up startled, tripped over the trashcan lid, and let out a phew, as if the scare had been bigger than any other of the day. The scene drew more laughter. We never let rice, panettone, or rabanadas escape intact, and we all ran to the kitchen to help gather the sugary pieces scattered on the floor. And it was at that moment, among crumbs of rabanada and looks of expectation, that I realized, the chaos under the twinkling lights had a greater purpose. It wasn't just competition or gratuitous mess, but an invitation to be present, body and soul, at every stumble and every laugh. The pickle hunt represented our way of saying, "I love you," without using direct words. It was the celebration of being flawed, imperfect, but united. Little did I know that, soon, we would discover together that that glass pickle held teachings about gratitude in the most bizarre gestures. But that, my friend, is for the next part. Wait until you see how such a simple game showed us the value of celebrating every small detail with an open heart. When the dust of ribbons and the crumbs of rabanada finally settled on the carpet, a kind of reverent quiet fell over all of us. It was as if, after the frenzy of the pickle hunt, the room had prepared itself to reveal something that went beyond the extra prize or the fleeting victory. I balanced myself on a chair, looked around, and noticed the soft smile that bloomed at the corners of each cousin's lips, the emotional glow in the adult's eyes, and Great Aunt Mirtez, for the first time, rolling her shawl with tender hands. Curious, but there, in the wake of the mess, a lesson emerged. Amidst the chaos, we discovered genuine gratitude. While Dad gathered the scattered cushions and Grandma picked up pieces of colored paper from the floor, I felt a warmth in my chest that didn't come from the heat of the lights, but from the feeling of belonging. At that exact moment, each shared laugh, each intentional bump, and each "I won" echoed like a chorus of unity. I saw my youngest sister opening her arms to hug Speedy Boy, forgetting any rivalry, just for the joy of having him close by. And, on the other side, my brother handed the pickle to one of the shyer cousins, in a subtle gesture of generosity, of someone who understood that the true prize wasn't the extra gift, but the bond created between us. It didn't take long for us to sit in a circle on the floor, like in an ancestral ritual. Great Aunt Mirtez brought her cup of hot tea, Uncle Raoul adjusted his notebook of jokes, and Grandma, already with teary eyes, insisted on repeating the improvised blessing. It was then that Dad opened one of Grandma's handmade cards, read aloud, "May we know how to be grateful for what we have, even when everything seems messy." That fell like a beam of light on our festive mess. I raised my head, saw the other young people nodding, and realized that, for an instant, there was no hurry or competition, only a collective pulse of gratitude. "That's right," said Grandma, her voice trembling with emotion. "The pickle is just a pretext. The true gift is in the way we celebrate each other." She smiled, tied her shawl firmly, and, in an almost rehearsed gesture, extended her hand to each of us, inviting us to hug. I got up, noticed the smell of pine and cinnamon in the air, and sat down next to her, holding her arm with affection. To think that it all started as a department store joke and now, in that room lit by 1,000 little lights, had become a sincere gathering of hearts. The silence that followed was punctuated only by the soft jingling of the mobile of bells swaying in the slightly open door. Great Aunt, previously impatient, raised her gaze, formed a discreet smile, and recounted a memory. "I remember the Christmas when the wind blew out all the lights on the tree. We were in the dark, but we still laughed and gave thanks. Gratitude saves more hearts than luck." It was impossible not to feel a pang in my chest. The beauty of those simple words sounded as profound as any memorized prayer. In that improvised circle, each person began to share what filled their heart with gratitude the most. Cousin Lucas, for example, spoke of how he had learned to cook with Grandma and that this learning was his greatest gift in life. My sister confessed that, after the pandemic scare, each Christmas hug seemed like a miracle. I spoke of how much I admired my father's patience, always willing to climb the ladder even when tired from work, just to place a special ornament. Each testimony was received with attentive gazes, smiles of recognition, and, occasionally, a whispered amen. While mouths chewed the last crumbs of panettone, Mom took a little notebook out of her pocket and invited each person to write a word that summed up their feeling in that Christmas. It was a magical moment. Terms like resilience, affection, memory, renewal, and, of course, gratitude emerged. Each word was placed in a decorated glass jar, which now gleamed next to the pickle on the tree as a reminder of our best values. I helped close the lid with a red ribbon, thinking about how something so simple could become a permanent symbol of the night. Suddenly, the light dimmed slightly, as if the old wiring felt the weight of emotion and blinked at a slower pace. Uncle Raoul picked up the music box and calmly turned the crank. The crooked notes of Jingle Bells filled the air, but they didn't sound dissonant. On the contrary, they gained delicacy. Grandma raised the pickle, turned it so that the dim light of the lamp passed through it entirely, and said, "Look well, it is in the hiding place of this green thing that our chance to see value in the improbable resides." I felt the words reverberate inside me, as if they had the power to suspend time for a second. A warm breeze invaded the room, spreading the aroma of coffee and homemade cookies. I closed my eyes, trying to fix each sensation, the distant jingling of a car on the street, the muffled sound of a conversation far away, the smile resting on my mother's face. And I thought, is it only when the world seems to spin too fast, when distractions pull us away from the essential, that we learn to give thanks? For there, in that silly game of finding a glass pickle, we discovered that the true prize was to look at each other with eyes of gratitude. When the music stopped, there was a chorus of contained applause, as if we were all marking an intimate rite. My Aunt Mirtez, always the most practical, confessed softly, "I never imagined that such nonsense would yield so much emotion." The laughter that followed was shy, but sincere, and I realized that there was a silent pact, from that Christmas on, that jar of words and the pickle up high would be living memories of how capable we are of transforming something trivial into a celebration of love. But of course, in a group like ours, calm doesn't last long. It was then that Dad suggested, what if, next year, we added a touch of our own, a Brazilian flavor to this game? The idea sounded simple, but my eyes sparkled with curiosity. Little did we know that, by mixing acarage and guarana into the German recipe, our family would give rise to a version so unique that even the oldest traditions would need to reinvent themselves. Want to know how we made this cultural fusion happen, incorporating samba rhythms, favela stories, and that warm touch that only we have? Wait for the next part and discover how we transformed the Christmas pickle into a true Brazilian-American Christmas. Right after Dad launched the idea of adding a Brazilian touch to our German-American tradition, I felt a mix of excitement and butterflies in my stomach. For us Brazilians, Christmas has always smelled of farofa, tasted of rabanada soaked in condensed milk, and sounded like samba playing on an improvised sound system. Thinking of fitting a little piece of green glass into this family recipe sounded as unusual as putting Brazil nuts in a fruitcake, but, little by little, the perfect fusion was discovered: pinches of palm oil, guarana smoothies, and that spicy touch of tropical vinaigrette to enhance the Christmas pickle. On the first Christmas after the idea, Grandma decided to replace the traditional thank you card with a jar of homemade vinaigrette, with purple onion, yellow bell pepper, and freshly chopped cilantro. The glass pickle, proudly hanging from the highest branch, became the trigger to taste that colorful sauce. Each family that found the pickle first won a jar to take to dinner. Imagine, my friend, trading the Easter egg hunt for a frantic race after something that, in the end, would yield an inviting Brazilian seasoning. The game gained the soul of street food, with giggles and comments like, "This vinaigrette will give a buy-in charm to the Christmas salad." Meanwhile, the dinner soundtrack began to mix Michael Bublé classics with Pagoda from Fundo de Quintal. In the middle of the bells and trumpets choir, suddenly a samba tonta emerged, conducted by Uncle Raul, who became an occasional percussionist. He hit aluminum pots with kitchen gloves, marking the rhythm for Grandma Monsenher to dance an improvised quadrilha. Each sote step told a story of longing for the Northeast, of mango trees full of mangoes on dirt roads, and friendships forged in the shade of the cashew tree. And, in the middle of that hip swaying, the pickle watched everyone, swaying as if it wanted to let out a very Brazilian, "Hey, oh." It didn't take long for us to incorporate the idea of tropical sweets into the pickle hunt. Instead of an extra gift wrapped in metallic paper, Grandma ordered mini brigadeiros, some white with coconut, others covered in chocolate and green sprinkles to match the pickle. Whoever found the ornament also won a bag with 3 units, distributed under the good-humored protests of the elders. "It doesn't even seem like Christmas, this is turning into a country fair," complained Great Aunt Mirtez, before sneaking 2 at once and then winking, won over by the flavor. The mix of tradition and mischief became the highlight of the night. Instead of running after rigid prizes, we ran after laughs and treats. To complement the menu, my mother decided to innovate with the barbecue. Yes, barbecue on the 25th also became part of our Brazilian-American Christmas. Besides ribs, sirloin, and spicy sausage, she set up a Brazilian-style pickle station, fresh cucumber slices marinated with lime, biquinho pepper, and a drizzle of olive oil. It was funny to see Uncle Raul holding the ice tray with trembling hands, examining each piece before deciding what would go on the grill. And I, in my little reporter role, recorded the surprised grimaces when someone discovered the vinegar's tanginess falling amidst so much smoky flavor. The highlight, however, came when we decided to create a hybrid ornament, a glass pickle adorned with mini Seigneur du Bonfim ribbons and colorful seed beads, like those bracelets we give out during Carnival. Each little knot symbolized a wish: health, job, love, peace, and, when hanging the ornament, each family member tied their own ribbon. The scene was so beautiful it looked like a popular festival altar, with Christmas lights reflecting like fireworks. With each gentle sway, the pickle sang a funny little sound, a tiny jingle that reminded us of bells, but with a countryside festival accent. While the hunt and dance flowed freely, my youngest sister embarked on the idea of creating a TikTok challenge. She recorded us dancing Jingle Bell Rock, with our hands full of farofa and peanut brittle, little hands dirty with sugar, and a smile that didn't fit on her face. In a few days, the hashtags Pickle de Vovo and Natal Navea went viral among friends, and we received messages from people in Recife, Sao Paulo, and even Texas, wanting to know how we made that weird mix work so well. That's when I understood, tradition gains strength through creativity and the generosity of welcoming those who want to participate, even if they live miles away. From that Christmas on, we always included a recipe exchange moment. We sit in a circle, each one opens a recipe notebook worn almost to tearing, and shares their version of a snack, seasoning, or Christmas dessert. I presented an olive pâté with Cairo pepper and pickle pieces, which was such a success that it became a mandatory appetizer. Cousin Raphael brought codfish balls with pickle pieces in the dough, and Grandma Monsenher, proudly, added the traditional rabanada with passion fruit sauce. The Flavor Festival was a living plot, where the glass pickle continued there, suspended on the branch, a silent witness to our culinary and affectionate adventures. Over time, the family's children began to embroider their own mini fabric ornaments replicating the pickle shape, filling them with chita scraps and recycled cotton stuffing. They hung these cloth pickles on lower branches for the little ones to find, creating a layered hunt, first, the textile prototypes, then, the original glass pickle. We laughed to see the focused hustle in 2 levels, almost as if the game sucked all the energy out of the house, but ended up spreading hugs and knowing looks in every corner illuminated by the tree. In one of those moments, Great Aunt Myrtez, usually the most serious, confided softly, "I thought all this was nonsense from a modern family, but now I wouldn't trade this carnival of smells and colors for anything in the world." I thought about how simple changes can disarm skepticism and install joy. That pickle, which was born in some nebulous legend of frozen villages, gained a tropical soul next to palm oil, guarana, and samba. It came to remind us that we create meaning in the rituals we do with an open heart, mixing cultures and flavors without fear of making mistakes. Today, when I hang the pickle and feel the jingling of the Brazilian beads, I know that this fragile ornament carries a mosaic of stories, from Germany to Brazil, from the past to the present, from traditional vinegar to palm oil seasoning. It has become a symbol of double belonging, a meeting point between hemispheres that, otherwise, might never have exchanged Christmas recipes. And if you think it ends there, wait until you find out how we pass this glass relic on, involving new generations in dances, TikTok trends, and online challenges that mix percussion, recipes, and a bit of audacity. But that, my friend, is for the next part, when we'll see how the Christmas pickle continues its flight from branch to branch through the hands of those yet to be born, and how every tradition, to live, needs to gain a new touch. While dawn still smelled of residual cognac and the last lights of the tree flickered in farewell, I felt a thrill of excitement in my chest, that Christmas night was far from over, because our hearts were already preparing to embrace the future. Imagine, children who today crawl in the room illuminated by the latest LED lights, seeing our pickle hanging from the highest branch for the first time, have no idea that this blown glass object has already passed through hundreds of curious hands and gained pinches of palm oil, guarana, and samba. Now, it was time to pass on to them not only the vinaigrette recipe, the quadrilla step, or the improvised tambourine rhythm, but the will to reinvent each ritual with creativity and affection. The following year, we launched a challenge on TikTok, "How does your Christmas shine beyond the little lights?" inviting families to show their own versions of our Christmas pickle. In a few days, voices from Manaus, Olinda, and even Chicago appeared on our feeds, recording dances with cloth pickles, exchanging fusion recipes of panettone with guava paste, and improvising regional jingles. I found myself whimpering with pride upon seeing a 5-year-old girl in Paraíba holding her crochet pickle, swaying to the sound of a xylophone, while her father explained, in the caption, that the ornament brought hope in difficult times. The internet, so chaotic, became our global village, gathering people who thought it was strange to hang a glass pickle and, soon after, turned the idea into a party. And it was in one of those videos that I saw something magical, a group of teenagers from Vitoria da Conquista dodging the Sorteio heat and creating a jingle foro atmosphere to celebrate the pickle. They sang an improvised chorus, accompanied by triangle and accordion, while one of the boys filmed from above, showing the improvised hanger made of a dry cajazera branch. The contrast was emotional, the translucent green of the glass reflecting the scorching sun, evoking imaginary snows that never fell in that region. I felt, then, that the pickle had ceased to be a mere family tradition to become a symbol of borderless cultural coexistence, and believe it, I felt like getting off the couch and dancing a quadrilla right there. But don't think we stopped there. We set up a small improvised studio in the living room, LED light, cell phone tripod, and a backdrop of fabric printed with tropical snowflakes, and started recording quick tutorials, how to embroider the cloth pickle, how to prepare Christmas vinaigrette inspired by a Tapua palm oil, how to build mini seed bead ornaments with dried acai pulp. Each step-by-step was sprinkled with laughter, recording gaffes right there. A plastic Christmas parrot fell off the shelf and, of course, the characteristic jingle of the glass pickle announcing that there was a story to be retold. It was almost a homemade reality show, but with the soul of a conversation circle, where the most important script was affection and permission to make mistakes and invent. With this, the family's children's sons, nephews, and godchildren began dreaming of the pickle since October. They made lists of best snack recipes, rehearsed choreographies in the backyard, recorded mini unboxings of Christmas ornaments from Sao Paulo, Porto Alegre, Salvador. And when December 24th arrived, they brought such intense energy that it seemed Santa Claus himself had left an extra energy plug for them. I remembered when, at 7 years old, I could hardly believe that a little piece of green glass could be worth a big present. Today, those boys found the pickle so precious that they improvised fans with satin ribbons to calm their anxiety, as if it were a treasure of incalculable value. The pinnacle of this renewal came when a recent grandson, still crawling, was the first to hunt the cloth pickle hanging on a low branch. He clung to the trunk, slipped, laughed, and grabbed the toy as if it were a mythical dragon. The scene, captured in slow motion by Uncle, became a loving meme in the family group, Little Tradition Hunter. The clip circulated on WhatsApp, Instagram, and even on Twitter. Acquaintances and those we didn't know awakening curiosity about this tropical Christmas pickle. It was then that we realized, tradition, to survive, needs to breathe, gain wings, flop, and resurge in new versions, always with the same spirit of sharing. Meanwhile, the TikTok recordings continued at full speed. The older children created duets with grandparents from other families, challenging them to show their pickles and their local recipes. We partnered with a social project in São Sebastião do Pará, teaching children there to personalize mini sustainable wood pickles, painted with natural dyes extracted from regional fruits. The images of the little ones concentrated, brush in hand, painting green balls representing pickles and leaves, brought me back to those afternoons when I helped Grandma sprinkle panettone with sugar and cinnamon. I saw there the cycle closing. We planted memories and harvested smiles. And so, between viral trends, craft workshops, and carousel rounds of memories, our glass pickle began to appear in alternative Christmas playlists, pop culture newsletters, and even local TV programs. This generated curious looks from people who previously thought it was all foreign nonsense, and now arm themselves with cell phones to record the tropical hunt. I myself watched a segment of a Manaus newscast talking about the phenomenon, Brazilian pickle, the chilly ornament that conquered hearts warmed by the sun. We laughed so much at the reporter's expression, trumpeting popcorn and cementing in our imagination that Christmas can be hot, full of bright colors, accelerated rhythms, and still maintain its ancestral lightness. While the virtual world buzzed with pickle unboxing videos, thank you choruses, and creative recipes, the family gathered in WhatsApp audio groups to share the best hashtags, the funniest lines from the grandchildren, and the most beautiful fails from the recordings. I realized that, behind each post, a genuine encounter was happening, eyes shining on the screen, stories being exchanged, memories being rebuilt. And this, perhaps, is the greatest legacy, the ability to use modern tools TikTok, Instagram, Zoom to bring together flesh and blood people around an idea as fragile as a little piece of green glass, but which carries within it the solidity of centuries of human desire for belonging. Now, the ball is in an even broader field. How to ensure that, decades from now, someone still hangs a glass or cloth pickle on some improvised branch, remembering all these digital and in-person gatherings, these virtual duets and eco-paint workshops? The answer, I realize, lies in each gesture of sharing and reinventing. Therefore, the next generation, even before holding the ornament at their fingertips, already rehearses creating augmented reality filters, 360 degrees videos showing the glow of tropical lights, and even Christmas podcasts that narrate the pickle saga from the point of view of mini percussionists, tum tum tum. It's a creative snowball that only tends to grow and, with it, the breath of hope that each tradition carries. As I arrange the colored ribbons for the big December workshop, I feel that the pickle has broken the barriers of space and time. It has ceased to be just an ornament to become a trampoline of joy, a laboratory of inventiveness, and a link between hearts scattered across time zones and different latitudes. With each repost, each duet, each laugh transmitted live, the pickle revives, gains strength, and invites those who have never even heard of the German tradition to dive into a story that is not only ours, but of anyone who believes in the magic of transforming the simple into the extraordinary. And now, when I grab the jar of words next to the tree and hang the most recent pickle beside it, a resin version that shines in olive green tones, I can hardly wait to share the next chapter. Because the true tradition of tomorrow is not only in what we leave within reach of hands, but in the seed of curiosity we plant in the minds of those yet to be born. And you, have you thought about how you want to reinvent your Christmas? Just wait until you find out what comes next. When the last twinkle of the lights goes out and the pickle, now wrapped in beads and memories, rests silently on the highest branch, we feel that something in us has changed forever. It's not just the ritual of hanging a glass or fabric ornament, it's the rediscovery that the magic of Christmas doesn't live in impeccable shop windows or complex recipes, but in the stories we sew together, in the laughs that escape amidst the chaos, and in the gratitude that blooms in the simplest gestures. Throughout this journey, from nebulous legends of German peasants to colorful vinaigrettes, from tropical brigadeiros to improvised claps to the sound of samba and tambourine, we learn that tradition only survives when it reinvents itself, and that the strength of a hug is worth much more than any superstition. Perhaps we have stepped off the thin line that separates reality and folklore, recognizing that the half-truths of the past are merely bridges that lead us to the versions we create today. The Christmas pickle, that fragment of glass blown by the calloused hands of an artisan, became a mirror where we reflect our mix of cultures, our longings, and our yearnings for belonging. And, by allowing the tradition to cross oceans, gain palm oil, guarana, and quadrilha dance, we understood that each family is a laboratory of affections, capable of transforming the improbable into a memorable everyday. Look around you now. How many little follies do we repeat around year-end tables? How many stories do we confide between one bite of rabanada and another? Each one of them is an invitation to feel part of something greater, to realize that, even when the outside world seems too rushed, we have the power to stop time. It only takes a pickle hidden among branches or an old recipe rediscovered in a yellowed notebook for the entire room to light up with expectation. It is there, in that instant of search and surprise, that the most valuable lesson enters the scene, the ability to carry the curious gaze of a child, even after becoming an adult. And if today you still look at Christmas as a date stuck in protocols, allow yourself to experience a new gesture. Create your own hunt, on a branch, in a corner of the house, or even in the affectionate memory that holds a forgotten object. Hide a book that marked your life, a love note, a memory that carries a tale full of laughs and tears. Observe how the simple act of calling people to look for a treasure awakens a smile, reignites voices, and tunes hearts. Notice how, amidst the general distraction, this game awakens a breath of genuine joy and how, suddenly, each presence becomes essential. It doesn't take big productions or cell phone bans, just make space for conversations, accept with an open heart the imperfections of the pine needles that fall, the lights that fail, or the details that insist on not going as planned. It is in this fragility that the beauty of contemporary Christmas resides, the one that makes tradition a living flow, always under construction. Whoever loves a story, whoever is willing to tell it and retell it in the voices of the youngest, is planting seeds so that, in 30, 50 years, someone opens a glass room or a digital file and feels the same warmth in their chest. Therefore, the provocation that remains is this: are you willing to challenge the traditions you received with your arms crossed? Are you ready to put your seasoning on the table, to write a new chapter with ink of gratitude and spice of pleasant surprise? Perhaps the answer will come when you try hanging a pickle of glass, cloth, papier-mâché, or another symbol that represents your way of celebrating. Perhaps it will be looking at your family's history, gathering a strange detail, an almost erased memory, and re-signifying it with affection. Each gesture, however silly it may seem, has the power to ignite a spark of belonging and to remind us of what truly matters. In a time when Christmas may seem consumed by the artificial glow of signs and the constant harassment of offers, the pickle reminds us that, indeed, there is a light that does not go out, that of the sincere encounter, of the sparkle in the eyes of those who share the same table, of the laugh that explodes without rehearsal. This glow is capable of crossing the cold concrete of cities and nestling in the warmth of each home, of each corner of the planet where someone decides to celebrate with a touch of creativity and love. If today you choose to reinvent your traditions, know that you will be contributing to a larger mosaic, a human tapestry of affections, where each point of color reflects crossed stories, intertwined cultures, and collective dreams. So, this Christmas, allow yourself to live from the inside out, infecting those around you with the enthusiasm of someone who discovers an almost forgotten secret. Find your own pickle, whatever it may be, and hide it so others can search for it, and when they find it, feel the pleasure of rewriting the pages of this celebration with you. May this game serve as a pretext to look into each other's eyes, extend a hand with tenderness, and thank, with all the syllables of your heart, for the company on life's journey. In the end, we are left with a certainty: tradition is not a stuck relic, but a flame that needs to be fed by laughs, shared recipes, improvised dances, and, mainly, by the desire to belong. May our future Christmases echo with the same spirit of reinvention, mixing past and future, butter and palm oil, snow and tropical sun, until each home discovers its own enchantment. And if, up there on the pine tree, a small glass or fabric pickle reminds us of all this, then we will know that we have done more than maintain a custom. We have inserted our mark of affection into humanity's great narrative, proving that, when we celebrate together, even the smallest ornament can carry the infinite.